and gentlemen, as we take this conference and this session forward, it cannot be emphasized enough what truly is the potential for petrochemical industries in Pakistan and how it can really tie it up. Riaz very kindly connected the dots in terms of not just immediate gains, but the long-term gains when we talk about import substitution. But it is also no secret that yes, there might be pieces in the policy making which are perhaps missing, and we need to work towards a conducive framework, but other countries have been able to start off things and build their capacity at a much faster rate. From the time of inception to actual commissioning, these petrochemical industries and subsidiary companies take a much shorter time than Pakistan. What seems to be the hurdle? Is it fair to say that it's about our own capacity? Is it the political will? How does the mix come together? Perhaps our next speaker will allude on these mysteries. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the Special Assistant to the Prime Minister on CPEC Affairs, Mr. Khalid Mansoor, for his presentation titled as Large-Scale Petrochemical Investments Require a Conducive Framework.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Qala rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. मेरी इंतहाई निगारिश यही है, तेरे नाम से इब्तिदा कर रहा हूँ. BOI Chairman Mr. Asfar Ahsan, Riaz Khan, President Anglo Corporation and OICCI President, His Excellency Ambassador of Korea and Pakistan, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. Well, first of all, my congratulations and compliments to the organization of this symposium, because a couple of days back when Asfar contacted me that I have to come and speak on this symposium, it was very nostalgic. Because way back in my career, if I remember correctly, it was 1998, when I had punched my tickets in Dhaarki operating fertilizer plants. I was transferred as part of the New Ventures Division. And the first task which was given to me was to do a comprehensive feasibility study on the petrochemical complex in Pakistan. And it was very interesting that at that point in time, the vision of Hengro was that we wanted to be a diversified petrochemical company operating internationally. And that was the dream of my mentor, late Shaukat Mirza Zaza Sahab, Allah Ta'ala unki maghfirat kare. And he was so passionate about it that he called me and he said that you have to make it happen. Cut long story short, I was empowered with a budget of about $3 million US. I was allowed to induct a team. And I still remember I put together a team of at least 4 or 5 analysts, very young graduates from LUMS and IBA, a couple of technical people, and whatever I brought to the table. And in addition to that, we inducted the world-renowned consultant Chem System from UK. And then the objective was to do a comprehensive feasibility study, and that should be based on the naphtha cracker. We did that study, had all sort of stuff, both technical, commercial, economical, and so on and so forth. But unfortunately, the outcome at that point in time, 1998, if we talk about 1998, it is almost, 24 years, 23 years, it was found to be not economically viable. The reason was that the naphtha which was being produced at that point in time was not adequate. So the entire raw material was based on import. And when the competitive analysis and the vulnerability analysis were done, we figured out that if only 10% of the assumptions which were made to see whether it was technically and economically viable, we found out that it is going to be highly vulnerable. So the chapter was closed, and I know Shaukat Mirza was not very happy with me because the vision has to be changed. And then the Angro's diversification went another way. But anyways, it was very nostalgic for me that at this particular point in time, obviously things are changed. So country has moved on, the demand is there, and also you see the demand of petrochemical complex for such kind of huge investment. Technology was not appropriate, etc., etc. But I guess this is most appropriate time to talk about that, and that's the reason I am here. So based on whatever I could recollect, based on that, detail or deep dive of the feasibility study I have done. So when I was called upon by Ministry of Industry and Production, Khusro Bakhtiar Saab, to come and help them devise this policy, so I immediately offered myself, and we will see that how we can contribute. But now I have put together a very brief presentation, and also would like to share something of my personal experience, that such kind of venture, what they require. Do they require only policy, or do they require conviction? Do they require belief in that one? And I will relate that, but some of my personal experiencing in really charting in this petrochemical era, and also the slogan which is written over there, part to mega industrialization. And also I will give you some examples, the way the CPEC authority is also trying to move this country in this direction. But before we do that, let me just set the fundamentals, the base case. I think Ghayass has done quite a bit, but I will be very, very brief and then move on to what really needs to be done. It has been said a couple of times, all the way from Asfar to Ghayass, that Pakistan is importing petrochemical products worth 3 billion. And this is not sustainable, and the major driver of this effort is that we have to have the import substitution and have something done, because the products which are being imported, they are growing at a rate of 5 to 7%, and these products are as follows, which is polypropylene, polyethylene, ethylene glycol, paraxylene, synthetic rubber, and styrene. So the major message is that the current import is not going to stay where they are. It is going to be increasing, and it is about the time we see that we should do this import substitution, and if at all possible, maybe export orientation. Now, this is the slide which was shown essentially by Ghayass also, but let me tell you that what is so important to look at the supply and demand situation. And these are the major petrochemical products, including PET, PTA, PVC, polypropylene, methanol, and LAB. As far as PET is concerned, the current production is only 350,000, and that is perhaps the demand even right now. But based on the 5% increase or 5% growth in this demand in the country, it is likely to be 520,000 tons, and that is huge. And that would mean that if this gap is to be bridged, it will require an investment of 120 million US dollars, and the global scale is also 450, so it's going to be really, world-class or, economically viable proposition. Like, PTA also, the gap is even more, because this product is growing at a rate of 7%, and it will require an investment of 500 million US dollar to bridge this gap, because the current production is only 500,000, and it has already grown. So the country is importing a little quantity, or the gap of about 200,000 tons, and it is likely to grow to 1.2 million tons per annum. PVC, this is something on which I had the opportunity to work very closely. It was set up only as polymerization product in Pakistan, and that was Angro Polymer, and that is where Asad Umar was the first CEO, and I was part of New Venture Division, just trying to help him as much as I could. So the main thing was the building block, that the first product is going to be only polymerization, and then we will see how it could be back integrated. So this product was set up, if I remember correctly, it was about 100,000 tons, and then the time was come where the demand started to pick up, and initial feasibility said the demand is going to be close to 90,000, but when this product was introduced, it was much less. So a lot of marketing effort has to be done. But as the time went by, then there was a need that rather than just importing the VCM, we have to go back to the back integration. And as head of New Venture Division, the task was given to me, and we figured out what should be the most economically viable proposition, and that is something we have done at my time in Angro, to find out second-hand shutdown plant, and from Louisiana we found EDC VCM. It was dismantled, it was relocated, and now the business case improved even further. But now it it is already expanded close to about 300,000 ton, but the way it is growing at a rate of 6%, it's going to be 420,000, and that will require almost $400 million of investment. And similarly, you know, I will not go into such kind of detail. I just wanted to create the linkage that these kinds of expansion in Pakistan to ensure that we start producing these petrochemical complex, an investment of about $4 billion will be required. So it is huge, and it is going to be extremely good. If we are able to have the right kind of policy, we have the investor, we should be able to raise the finances. And one of the most important message I have left when I was meeting all these major players who are contemplating to have such kind of expansion or investment in Pakistan, please carry out detailed, you know, competitive analysis, because you have to compete with the world leading players who have got so much margin from where these products are being imported. Now, what is the status of the availability of policy? You will see over here that in the entire hydrocarbon chain, some of the policies are already available. Like for instance, oil and gas exploration and production, the policy is there since 2012. Whether it needs improvement, whether it needs some kind of incentivization, clearly yes, because this will be required to make sure that whatever reserves we still have as the indigenous gas, we must do that, and at an appropriate point in time, some focus will be made over there. The other two sectors are midstream and downstreams, and here you see the policy was there, but in the last few months, a lot of interaction has been done by Ministry of Energy Petroleum Division, and I had the opportunity to participate and engage with the local players. The policy is almost there, and I am very confident in the short period of time it will be enacted and will be put in place. But let me tell you that this was probably for the first time I have seen a lot of interaction of the government with the private sector to find out what they require, why they require, and after a lot of dialogue, the first draft was presented in Cabinet Committee on Energy, and they have asked, you know, a few questions. Those are being addressed, and I'm very sure that this policy will be announced. But why we are here right now and talk about there is no policy for petrochemical? And as I said that the work which was done way back, almost 23 years, and we only have now PVC, and rest of the petrochemicals somehow, you know, they did not have the right kind of attention, and that's why right in the beginning I congratulated that this is the time to really make an effort, and all the players which are really participating in that one, as long as I am part of the government, please be rest assured that whatever support you will be needing, because I think I should be able to relate that what it takes to make these projects technically and economically viable, and this kind of contribution will be there, inshallah. Now, let me summarize, and that is based on the first very comprehensive presentation. All the players were there, and Ghayas also said that they need appropriate tariff protection. And here there is something which is a little reluctance from the government, and fundamentally speaking, we should be having the investment which should be stand on its own feet, rather than having, you know, what degree of tariff protection. But if the country has to start introducing such kind of investment, this kind of tariff protection has to be there, not in perpetuity, but maybe for a small period of time. Plant and machinery import duty exemptions, I think all the incentives where we are inviting or persuading investor out of China and also from rest of the countries as part of the CPEC, I can tell you that based on the competitive and comparative analysis I have done, and we presented that in our recent trip to China, that Pakistan offers one of the most attractive set of fiscal incentives, which includes, you see, very inadequate or very little duty on the plant machinery and import duty at the time of setting up the plant. Income tax holiday for a period of 10 years, and then, low cost local financing, the same kind of financing, because this is going to be a big part, because for any project financing, you have 75% debt and almost 25% equity, or maybe 30-70, or maybe 40-60, whatever. But some portion of this lending has to be done from the local financial institution. And what they are demanding that some kind of incentive should be given, like we have the textile sector, and also you see the requisite infrastructure. So that's fine, and let me rest this case over here, that it was heard very appropriately by the ministry, and NTC chairperson was also there. I was asked to be a part of that committee, and as the time I go back, if you maintain the follow-up, I think we should be able to put this policy in place, and then, take it from, development all the way to the execution. But whether such kind of initiative is going to be sustainable, I have to narrate a story to you. Power sector, this is the major issue of Pakistan. But what we used to have one of the most inappropriate choice of fuel. Like for instance, 38 to 40% of our power generation used to be based on furnace oil, and that was also the imported one. Unsustainable, and that was causing a huge, account deficit, and unsustainable. When we looked at Pakistan versus the rest of the countries, we figured out that almost all the developed and developing countries, their major power generation is based on what? It is based on coal. And here we have been sitting on the 7th largest reserve of coal in Thar, but what was not there? There was no belief, there was no conviction, and at that point in time, again part of the new venture division, I was mandated to do a technical and economic viability study. So we embarked on, and I must say with a lot of pleasure that this is the first public-private partnership which was set up, because such kind of undertaking required a huge investment in infrastructure. That is what you are asking right now for the petrochemical also. And RWE or Germany was engaged, and when we find out that it is one of the most appropriate initiative of Pakistan to have the energy security. So when we were dealing with the bureaucracy at that time, nobody believed that we will be able to make it happen. But what was there? Only one thing, Riyaz. It is conviction, it is confidence. And when I used to narrate that to some other people, that look, what is Thar? Thar has got 175 million tons of coal. 175 billion tons of coal means what? That we can generate 200,000 megawatt for 100 years. And then also it has got potential to get, the gasification, and then when you have the petrochemical complex and the petrochemical complex also. So what was required? That you have to take billions of tons of the mud or the material which is called overburden, and only then you will be able to access the coal which is 195 meters below the earth. So people said that it is not possible, it won't be able to do that. So very interestingly, I have a friend which is excellent poet, and we were together in the college. So once he asked me that, Khalid, please explain me what this Thar is all about. So I told him that, look, Thar, so much coal, it is setting 195 meters, but if we are able to exploit that, we will achieve energy security for the country. So after a few weeks, he wrote, a couple of very small poetry, and it goes like that. कि तने को चीरती कोंपल दिखाई देती है, मुझे बहार की आहट सुनाई देती है, अगरचे मौत का दरिया है मेरे रास्ते में, मेरे जुनून को मंजिल दिखाई देती है. और किसे खबर है कि वो भी कोई बुलंदी हो, because that is where the poet is relating, that it is 195 meters. किसे खबर है कि वो भी कोई बुलंदी हो, बुलंदी से जो पस्ती दिखाई देती है, मुझे बहार की आहट सुनाई देती है, मेरे जुनून को मंजिल दिखाई देती है. So gentlemen, you will need this kind of conviction and confidence if you have to move on, because look, what it is shown over here. That excellent success story. The mine was started with, when rest of the world refused that they would not be able to give the financing, it was only the time tested from China, and we had the financing from there. The first phase was almost $1 billion, and we had 3.8 million tons of mining. And there are 2 330 megawatt projects, which was done by a consortium of Angro. And then they have got, a couple of other local joint venture partners, and also a Chinese company and a bank, Habib Bank, because they said that they have the conviction and confidence to do it only for the national interest. and this is up and running. And I must tell you, this is very high merit order. And now the situation is that you can realize that what is the energy security for the country. As we speak, the landed coal cost because of Ukraine is over $500 per ton. And it is a major dilemma that how we will be able to really support some of the projects which are based on imported coal. But what this, figure or this chart is showing, please pay attention to that third coal success is all about the scalability. Scalability means that you have to really increase the capacity of the mine because it is very easy now. And I will give you an analogy that the first project which was done close to about $1 billion, and this was 3.8 million tons of coal, but now the second phase is almost done and the capacity is going to be doubled, which will be providing coal to 2 more 330 megawatt power projects, all as part of the CPEC, and that is going to be completed in next 3 to 6 months. What this scalability does, that it reduces the cost of the coal per ton, and in turn what really happens that it reduces the cost of power generation in the overall energy mix. And that is what country needs, that you have to have the low input cost. And further, when the feasibility study was done, and I was fortunate enough to really lead that feasibility study, some of my ex-colleagues are sitting here, we figured out that, जैसे कहते हैं ना, तेरे सामने आसमां और भी हैं. And I had the opportunity to visit Inner Mongolia. We found out that they have got a huge petrochemical complex. And I'm talking about, this is 2008-9 time period. And what they do, essentially same quality of coal, they gasify it. And once you gasify it, this is called synthesis gas. And if you do that, you will require, let's say, 12 to 15 million tons per annum of coal. This will increase the scalability of mine. And then you have got all sets of products which you can manufacture based on the indigenous raw material. You can have urea. And I am very happy to really report that the last JCC, which was concluded in September after a lot of effort, this is part of an agreed initiative where China is going to be helping us. And in the last couple of weeks, I engaged with a major urea player in the country, Angro, Fatma Fertilizer, and there are one more, local. And also there are 2 Chinese players. They're extremely interested to have this scalability done. Now, what we found out, that you remember that in the last couple of months, when there was a shortfall of urea, what kind of crisis it has created. And now there are 2 things which are highly, highly vulnerable. That we have got about 6 million ton of urea industry, also part of petrochemical, but the indigenous gas is reducing. And the only way you will be able to sustain that industry, you have to have indigenous gas. Either you have to, scale up the E&P activity in the country, or this is where you have got huge potential sitting there. You have to do the synthesis gas or the gasification. And this is part of the CPEC, and it is ratified at the highest level. And when we started to engage with these, major players, what they told me that the country would be needing another world-scale urea plant by around 2030. Otherwise, country will have to start importing. And once we start importing, that is the major pain point the country has. So if we were to achieve that objective, we must start to work now. So that's the commitment, and we have got this kind of, consortium already put together, and all the effort are there. And once you have the synthesis gas, you can have, this kind of fertilizer product and all petrochemical, which you can name it. I have seen it with my own eyes. And since then, the technology has been demonstrated, and we know that we should be able to leverage our relationship, commitment from the China. And let me mention one more thing, that in the last trip of China, when I was assisting Prime Minister, he chaired 20 meetings with global 500 Chinese companies. What they did that, one-on-one meeting, and first of all, they introduced themselves. They said that whatever projects they have done in Pakistan, and also pledged their commitment for billions of dollars of investment towards industrialization in Pakistan. And that is what the CPEC Phase 2 is all about. Industry, industry, industry. Pakistan should be a manufacturing hub and meeting 3 objectives: import substitution, export orientation, and employment. Now, when we went into the engagement with all those players, let me mention that there are two sorts of consortium, rather three, and they have pledged that they can set up petrochemical complex and refineries in Gwadar worth at least 20 to 30 billion US dollars. Easier said than done. So what is our role? We have to now engage. And based on my past experience, now you need to take all those MOUs. MOU is worth piece of paper. But now they need to develop and then get executed. So that is where you see all sorts of commitment has been given to such investors. And those investors are not going to be only in China, but we have alleviated this misconception that CPEC is only centric for China. It is available to all the other investors from the rest of the world, and that is the message I have been communicating to various ambassadors. They have been coming to my office, and we are trying to set up another conference sometime next year in which we will fully disseminate what CPEC is all about, what it is offering, what kind of special economic zones we have, what are the fiscal incentives available over there. So with that kind of stuff, at least I have conviction that if we continue with that momentum, and given that there is a full support and assurance from the PM office and Prime Minister himself, he has been very effective in alleviating some of the major concerns of the investor already. And the Special Economic Zone Act, which required that any investor, before he takes his investment into execution, they required 37 approvals, and that is where major wastage of time had been taken place. So all those amendments have been done, and that has been done jointly by CPEC Authority and BOI, and we are very confident that that is going to be there. Now let me conclude that what we really need to do. A couple of points and I will conclude, that we need to formulate an appropriate policy framework for thermal coal gasification. And this is the long term. As I said, we need to start now. So the draft policy has been prepared by Ministry of Petroleum or Ministry of Energy Petroleum Division, but we are seeking the private sector feedback, how it is going to be satisfying their requirement. Thermal coal chemical industrialization zone may be established with SEZ incentives, because we have already available, there are 9 special economic zones under CPEC, otherwise there are total 22 special economic zones in the country, so we can have a similar stuff, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We need to develop and implement infrastructure project, and one is very important, and again, we are leading it in close cooperation with, with Lucky Power. Angro is there, and this is the project which is going to be replicate of what we have done in Thar, which is public-private partnership, and what it offers, that the phase 3 of Thar is about to happen, because you need more coal to support 2 major projects. One is 660 megawatt project in Port Qasim, and contractually they are obliged to use Thar coal. So they won't be able to transport this coal based on road transportation, so you need a road network. So this project feasibility is almost completed, and Public-Private Partnership Authority has already ratified that, and we will be introducing that inshallah very soon. And I'm very confident that that is going to really not only scale up Thar coal, but also provide such kind of energy or raw material for even cement industry, for them to stop importing almost 14 to 16 million tons. Just 2 points, I'm done. Road shows will need to be done for bilateral agreement with China and other countries. We need to strengthen coordination at all levels of government for timely approvals and policy implementation. This is very important, because once the policy is there, it requires, you see, input from all the relating ministries, and this kind of coordination will be done. And last but not the least, we have to enhance E&P activities, because I believe we still have a lot of indigenous gas. We have, you see, tight gas, we have got, you see, other kind of reserves available, but if the effort with the proper incentives are given, I'm sure that we would still be able to have a lot of indigenous gas. So that's all from my side. Thank you very much for your attention. Pakistan Zindabad.
Shukriya, Khalid Saab. Sorry to have rushed you in the conclusion, but we were kind of running behind schedule now. Thank you for understanding that. Ladies and gentlemen, the first segment of our symposium comes to a close. We'll have a much shorter tea break, but before we move outside, may I now request the Honorable Chairman of the Board of Investment, Janab Mohammad Asfar Ehsan Saab, to please step forward, also with our co-host, Mr. Sajid Aslam from ACCA, to present these mementos to our worthy speakers as a token of our appreciation. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the Honorable Ambassador of the Republic of Korea to Pakistan, Honorable So Sang-pyo. Thank you for a very comprehensive presentation about learnings and experience from Korea. Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the President of OICCI, Mr. Ghayas Khan. As OICCI continues to advocate for the industry, finding more avenues to collaborate and grow the economy. Last but definitely not the least, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Special Assistant to the Prime Minister on CPEC Affairs, Mr. Khalid Mansoor. May I request all our worthy speakers to please come forward for a group photograph, please?